Peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism. Good Garvey Day to my continental Africans. Good Garvey Day to my Australian Africans. Good Garvey Day to my Africans in Europe and Asia. Good Garvey Day to my Africans in Canada, Central America, South America, the Caribbean. Good Garvey Day to my Africans in the South Pacific. Good Garvey Day to my Texas Africans, my Carolina Africans, my Georgia Africans. Good Garvey Day to my New York, my New Jersey, my Connecticut Africans. Good Garvey Day to my Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, Rhode Island Africans. Good Garvey Day to my Nashville, Chattanooga, my Memphis Africans. Good Garvey Day to my St. Louis Africans. Good Garvey Day to my Kansas City Africans. Good Garvey Day to my Louisville, Kentucky Africans. Good Garvey Day to all my HBCU student Africans around the country. Good Garvey Day to my Chicago, Detroit, Omaha, Minneapolis, Des Moines Africans. This is your big brother, Dr.Umar Ifatunde, the notorious RBG, Nana Payina, Dr. Ifatunde Oguntade. And today is the spring edition of the Black Parent Teleconference. Today is the spring edition of the Black Parent Teleconference. If you have a question about your son or daughter or a boy or girl who you care about, if you have a question about education and mental health, now is the time. If you have a question about education or mental health, now is the time. You can text me and I will call you so you can ask your question live for the benefit of the entire Pan-African listening audience. You can text 215-989-9858. You can text 215-989-9858. You can text 215-989-9858. If we don't have enough callers, we will prematurely end. Okay, I started a little late. Please forgive me for that. Let's see if we have any questions to get the day started. Again, if you have a question about your son or daughter, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. I will not be pinning my number. I said my number. If you're too lazy to write it down, that's your business. If I got enough energy to get up and do the call, you certainly got enough energy to write the number down. So if there's any parents today with a question about their child, okay, text your first name and your city. Text your first name and your city. That's the instructions. Text your first name and your city, where you are, to 215-989-9858.
Hello?
Good Garvey Day, my brother. Where you based at?
Jersey, Newark, New Jersey.
Newark, New Jersey. Peace, peace, peace. I actually be in New Brunswick, New Jersey on the 17th of this month, and I'm supposed to be in Newark on the 23rd of this month, I think it is.
You headed back to the bookstore?
No, sir. It's going to be at a different location. On the 23rd, it's at a university. But I'll have that information. You could text me for it in about a week. Go right ahead with your question, good brother.
So my question is, what's the difference between the 504 and the IEP? Because my little man's struggling in school, so I'm trying to decide what's the best route to take.
How old is he?
10.
What grade?
He's about to be, well, he stayed back, so he's about to be in 6.
Okay, okay, so right now he's finishing the 5th grade?
Yes.
Okay, he already has an IEP?
Not yet. They went to test him for it, but I want to know if they should test him for an IEP or 504. I'm not sure what the difference is.
Okay, help me understand why you want him tested at all, though. What is the problem?
They saying he's showing signs of dyscalculia. That's it's
right. It's a math disability.
Yeah.
Based on what, though? What is he doing that makes them feel that? Because remember, the school will throw around labels. I don't care about the labels. I want to know the symptoms of the label. What are they seeing that makes them believe he has this math disability?
Well, I have a meeting with them on Tuesday to get more details on it.
Okay. Did you sign a permission to evaluate form already?
Not yet.
Okay, because you shouldn't sign it if you don't have your questions answered. We should not be letting anybody evaluate our children if we don't know why, number one, and if we don't agree, number two. If I were you, because we are now in April, the school year is just about over. You probably got, when do they get out? May or June?
June.
Okay. So basically you're looking at 2 months of school, because you're basically looking at about 2 months of school. So if my personal rule is, I don't think we should ever allow our children to get evaluated this late in the school year. You know, I don't really like to see them evaluated after March, but definitely not after April, because it's the end of the year. And the reason I don't think you should allow him to get tested at this late point is this concern that they're expressing about your son's ability to learn is based off the opinions of one teacher. The teacher he has this year. Next year, he will be with a different teacher. He may be with different classmates. He will definitely be in a different grade. So why allow them to put your son in special ed next year for the opinions of the teacher he had this year? So if it were me, I would not get him tested. I would get my son a tutor that I would pay for out of my own pocket. You could find a retired teacher in Newark. I'm sure there's plenty of them. You could get a high school student, a college student to tutor your son because he's so young. And I would simply get him a math tutor. I never met your son.
Yeah, I was thinking about going down to Rutgers and paying somebody, a little youth that need a little extra change in their pockets or something like that.
Yeah, that's what you should do. But there's no way I'm letting them test my 5th grade son at the end of the school year. No way. I'm going to get him a tutor, and we're going to see how he does next year. Now, to answer your question, the difference between the 504 and the IEP. The IEP is a plan that is given to a child who has been evaluated and has been determined to have a learning disability. There are 13 federally defined special education learning disabilities. They include autism, emotional disturbance, intellectual disability, speech and language impairment, hearing impairment, visual impairment.
So through the poll, she says specifically SLD, specific learning disability. That is specifically a label, or is it more to that?
Right, I'm going to come to it. Okay. Orthopedic impairment, multiple disabilities, other health impairment, and the most popular, there's 13 of them, and the most popular one, the one that is most used in special ed history and on our children, is the specific learning disability. And there's 8 types of the specific learning disability. So there's 8 subtypes of that one disability. There's basic reading skill. So you can have specific learning disability for basic reading skill. You can have specific learning disability in reading comprehension. You can have specific learning disability in reading fluency. You can have specific learning disability in listening comprehension, oral expression, written expression, math calculations, and math reasoning. So what they're claiming your son has would actually fall under specific learning disability for math calculations. That's the one. But to the question, in order to get an IEP, you have to be evaluated and you have to be classified with one of those 13 learning disabilities that I just named. You already said they're looking at the learning disability for math. Now, the IEP is a modified curriculum for the disabled child in the disabled area. It is a modified curriculum for the disabled child in the disabled area. So if your child has autism, the IEP is going to be the curriculum for autism. Your child got a reading disability, the IEP is going to be the curriculum for the reading disability. In your son's case, allegedly, because I don't think nothing wrong with the boy. He probably ain't practicing enough. He probably ain't focused enough, and they probably not teaching him well enough. I would get him a tutor. But in your son's case, they're looking at specific learning disability for math calculations. So what that would mean then is that your son, if he was classified as that, if you allowed him to do that, he would get an IEP that targets his math calculation skills. So he would get pulled out of the classroom for a certain amount of time each day or each week to get that extra help. But what I'm telling you is, I would just get him a tutor. A tutor is going to benefit him far more than that weak learning support they're going to give your son in that Newark, New Jersey public school. So you got to be very careful about putting black kids in special ed who are in school districts that have a reputation for horrible education in the first place. See, when your child goes to a school district that has a reputation for horrible education, then you automatically know that there's a strong possibility that my son is struggling with math because he's never been taught correctly. Because most of the students in his district haven't been taught correctly because their test scores are below the state and national average, which is the case for nearly every inner city school district in America, because the white people who work in them could care less whether or not our children learn. So let me stay with the question. So the IEP, you must have a special ed disability. That disability must affect your ability to learn, and you get a modified curriculum for the disabled child in the disabled area. So with the IEP, we're dealing with a modification of instruction. That's a fancy word. When I say modification of instruction, that's a fancy concept, which simply means we're going to dumb down the education for this kid. We're going to dumb it all the way down to his level because we believe he can't learn as well as the other children. An IEP is a dumbed down curriculum for a black child. That's all it is. They're going to reduce the goals, reduce the expectations, reduce the workload. They're going to make it easy for him. Now, here's what you need to be clear about. If you're slowing down the education for my son, how will he ever keep up? The answer to that question, or excuse me, how will he ever get back up on level with his other 5th grade, soon to be 6th grade classmates? The answer to that question is he won't. The answer to that question is he won't. The answer to the question is he may never catch back up in math. Black kids who go to special ed, they tend to be there till they graduate. And when they graduate, if they get a regular diploma, they're not academically functional, a lot of them. Now, the good news in your son's case is they're only looking at math. But if you let them test your son, you might want to tell them you only want them to test him for math, because if you sign that permission to evaluate form and you don't specify the disability in question, they will test your son for everything. And you don't want that, because they can come back telling you your son retarded. They can come back telling you he emotionally disturbed. They could come back telling you he's intellectually disabled. They could come back telling you he's reading disabled. If you're going to let them do it, and I don't think you should, I think all he needs is a tutor. But if you're going to let them do it, you want to specify on the permission to evaluate form, math disability only. You want to write that above your signature, math disability only. And you want to tell them too, the only thing I want y'all looking for is math. And again, I don't think you need to do it at all, but if you're going to do it, specify. If you do not specify, hold on, let me finish this. And then I'm gonna get you. If you do not specify, they will test your son with everything, and you can end up being very surprised when you're called in to pick up your son's evaluation or attend the IEP meeting, and you realize they didn't put labels on your son that you never thought he had, and did not give them permission to test for. So that's IEP. Now let's talk about 504. 504 is a program that provides the child with reasonable accommodations in the school setting. Reasonable accommodations in the school setting. Okay? Not instructional modification. The IEP is a curriculum. The IEP is a curriculum. We're going to dumb down the learning. 504 is not a curriculum. 504 is only going to give your son supports, such as extra time to take his tests, regular breaks from the classroom, a behavior plan, a one-to-one aid. He could get tutoring with that. With the 504, the instruction does not change. He stays on the same curriculum as all the other children. The big difference is 504 is only accommodations. IEP is the modification of instruction. The IEP is a curriculum. The 504 is not a curriculum. However, for both of them, you need a disabling condition. For the IEP, you need one of the 13 learning disabilities. For the 504, your son needs some kind of documented disabling condition. So whether that's behavior, whether that's memory, whether that's processing speed, whether that's diabetes or epilepsy or depression, any disabling condition that affects his ability to function in the school can get him a 504. For the IEP, we're looking at a disability that affects learning. 504, we're looking for a disabling condition that affects functioning. Did that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Any follow-up question?
So, do you think education would be different if it was at a charter school versus a public school, like a KIPP school? Or
It depends. It depends. Some KIPP schools are good. Some KIPP schools are horrible. It all depends. Charter schools, by law, are considered individual school districts. A charter school is a school district of one school. And just like public schools, they vary widely and they're very diverse. So one charter school might be great. Another charter school might be horrible. If you're considering a charter school, put them on a waiting list. But while you're on the waiting list, go on the website, go to the school district's website, see what their grades are. Go to the State Department of Education, see what the grades are, see what the test scores are. You got to research charter schools. Some of them are horrible. Some of them are excellent. Some of them are worse than the public school you took your child from. Some are better than the public school you took your child from. You have to investigate the charter school. You good?
I think that's the last question I have.
No problem. As I said, shoot me a text in about a week for that Newark, New Jersey. Let me double check the date on that. Hold on. Let me see here. Hold on. Right here. Newark is on April the 23rd from 1 to 5. And it's the Rutgers Black Professionals Network. And it's going to be held at the Norman Samuels Plaza. But I'm still waiting on the confirmation from them. But that's Wednesday, April 23rd from 1 to 5. And it's the Rutgers Black Professionals Network. I do believe it's open to the public. Again, I'm waiting on confirmation for the event, so you can check back in about a week to see if it's confirmed or not.
All right.
Okay, my brother, be safe. And like I said, think about getting him a tutor and think about writing them the letter telling them that you do not want him evaluated at this time. You're just going to get a tutor, see how he does next year. But remember, whenever we're talking about learning disabilities in black kids, you must account for effort. You must account for interests. You must account for motivation. You must account for practice. Again, effort, interests, motivation, and practice. If the child ain't got enough effort, if they don't have enough interest, if they don't have enough motivation, and if they don't practice, it's no need to talk about no learning problems. This is all effort and motivation.
Agreed. Okay.
No problem. Appreciate you, brother. Be safe.
Have a good one.
Okay, now.
You too.
All right.
Oh,
Peace, King. Who am I speaking with?
this is Justin.
Brother Just, where you based at?
And for right now, I'm in Texas, man. For right now, I was in Florida, but
What part of Texas?
Austin.
Austin, Texas. Yeah, I spoke there three
Yes, sir.
times. Go right ahead with your question, my brother.
I really don't have no question. I just need guidance.
Okay.
Like a counsel.
Okay, is it about children? Because this is only for the Black Parent Teleconference.
No.
Okay,
I don't
so-
have no children.
Okay, so shoot me a text and we can schedule a consult.
I texted you already. I told
Okay.
you I had Mauritius LAY.
Got you, brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, like bar. No doubt. I'll reach back out to you later.
All right, let me know.
Okay, bro.
All right, love.
One love. Is this Sister Olivia? Is this Sister Olivia?
Yes.
Okay. Are you in Aurora, Colorado, good sister?
No, Aurora, Ohio.
Okay, Aurora, Ohio. Go right ahead with your question.
Okay, I'd like to know how I can support my children who were experienced some narcissistic behavior from their stepfather.
Okay, is the stepfather still in their life?
No,
How long has he been gone from their life?
he's been gone. We've been gone physically 3 years.
Okay. Have they shown any symptoms of trauma or abuse since his departure?
Yes,
Like
they're
what?
very lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem, very down on themselves.
How old are the children?
17 to 18.
Oh, so they're almost adults. Okay, so
Yes.
counseling, therapy, that's what you need. You should Google black psychologists, black counselors, black licensed professional counselors, black clinical social workers in your area. I would just Google it right on the internet. Black psychologists, black therapists, black licensed professional counselors, and black clinical social workers, and take them on about 3 or 4 interviews. Never go with the first person you talk to. Take them on about 3 or 4 interviews and see who they're comfortable with, and start the therapy from there.
Okay, then they have expressed that they don't really want to do therapy. Is there anything else that I could do?
No, ma'am. Therapy is how you heal.
Okay.
It's no other way. Therapy is how they heal. I mean, it'll be good if they could bond with a big brother, uncle, brother in the community, somebody who could take them under their wing, who you don't have to worry about trying to sexually exploit them, because we have so many sickos now. That would be good for them as well. But to heal, they're going to need therapy. They have to process what they went through. You can only heal by processing what you go through.
Okay.
Okay, my queen. If you have any trouble finding somebody black, reach back out to me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now, no problem. Peace and love. This is the Black Parent Teleconference. Education and mental health for children.
Dr.Umar,
Peace, King. Where you based at?
Ohio, right outside of Cleveland.
Right side of Cleveland. Wait, am I going to be? I don't have a Cleveland day. I will be in Columbus, Ohio on Sunday, May the 25th, African Liberation Day, for the Black Ohio Expo. I'll be doing a presentation at 3 p.m. on the psychoacademic Holocaust, the school to prison pipeline. So that's the Black Expo in Columbus, Ohio, Saturday, May the 25th. And it's a 2-day event, but I'm there on Sunday. Sunday. I'm there on Sunday the 25th, not Saturday. And I'll be doing a presentation at 3. But go right ahead with your question, good brother.
All right. So, yeah, and thank you for taking the call. I actually saw you in Cincinnati years ago with my older son. Now I got a younger son. He is in first grade. We're having some behavioral issues. We seem to think that he may be on the spectrum of autism. And we are at a charter school. Not really satisfied with the charter school. Just trying to figure out what direction we can go. I'm sitting here with Mom right now. Just trying to make sure that we can get some questions in regards to what direction we should go with his behavior. The kid lately just kind of not really, I mean, he's an intelligent young man, but not really interested in what's been given to him. Been having some, I want to say, physical issues in regards to just kind of rebellious behavior, I would think, but his attention span seems to be a little bit off a little bit.
What grade
I
he
just
in?
wanted to know. He's in first grade. First grade, 6 years old, and
Okay.
just trying to get him evaluated if he's autistic. If he's, we think it's a little bit more behavior because again, he is smart, but he just doesn't seem to be interested. And he's starting to be, as it's getting warmer outside, it's starting to seem like it's a little bit starting to get a little physical,
Okay.
and we just
Let
want to
me
catch
let
it
me
before it's too
respond.
late.
Let me respond.
Yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, if it's me, I am not getting a first grader evaluated at all
Okay.
because unless it's for speech, because you cannot prove any kind of a learning disability in a 6 or 7 year old. You can't. Any first grader who's been evaluated anywhere in the world and determined to have any kind of a learning problem, that was nothing more than a professional opinion. There's no way under heaven you can prove a 6 year old is autistic. The 6 year old might be autistic, but you can't prove it at that age. I wouldn't do it at that age because it's only a hypothesis. It's a guess. It's a professional opinion. It's an inference. It's not a fact. I wouldn't test them that young. I would give my son time and maybe
Okay.
another year and see how he does. The other thing you need to keep in mind too, and this is what you got to pay attention to when you're dealing with children on the autistic spectrum. For the purposes of special ed, when we evaluate as school psychologists, we are looking not only at whether your son is autistic, but we're also looking at whether his autism affects his ability to learn. Because remember, he can only qualify for an IEP if the autism affects learning. It must affect learning. If your autistic son can learn in the regular class as well as any other child, it does not benefit him at all to be given an IEP. And it's actually illegal to give him an IEP because you can only qualify for special ed in the United States if, number one, you have a disability, in this case, the possibility of autism, and number two, that autism must affect your son's ability to learn. I've evaluated plenty of autistic children who stayed in the regular classroom because although they were autistic, they didn't have a learning problem. What they did end up getting was a 504 plan. We gave them accommodations. So they had to sit at the front, or they needed a one-to-one aid, or they needed to take regular breaks, or they had to be escorted to different classes, or they needed a behavior plan. Your son might need a 504 if in fact he is presumed or proven to be autistic. But at first grade, I wouldn't do it at first grade. I wouldn't do it
Got you.
at first grade. Now if y'all feel strongly about it, y'all can. I do not like testing first graders because you can't prove nothing at 6 and 7 years old. Okay, so now on the behavior side, don't ever let the school test your child for behavior. Don't ever don't ever go to a school and say, our son having behavior problems or you're complaining about his behavior. We want y'all to evaluate and see what's going on. No way. Because the only disability under the umbrella of special ed that deals with behavior is emotional disturbance. That's the only one. That is the only disability of the 13 in the world of special ed that deals with behavior, emotional disturbance. And you don't want your black son running around with the ED label because the ED boys, they are the most stigmatized. They are the most discriminated against. When you get classified as emotionally disturbed as a black boy in an American school, you can forget it. They basically have written you off as somebody who will ultimately drop out or go to prison. So you don't ever want to talk to them about behavior. And if they try to get you to get your son evaluated outside of school for ADHD or conduct disorder or ODD, you want to say hell no, because all they're going to do is medicate your son if you do that. So if it's me, I'm just going to watch my son, see how he does over the next year. And if I'm starting to feel strongly, if I continue to feel strongly that he has autism, I would get him tested then. But first grade, you pulling the trigger really, really young. Now they'll do it. They'll give him the label. But you want to keep in mind if they put that boy in an autistic support class and he's not autistic, he will start mimicking the behaviors of the children who really are autistic. And now you got an autistic son, not because he's autistic, but because he learned how to act like he's autistic. The other thing, as I told the previous caller, it's too late in the year. I wouldn't get my son tested in April anyway. Even if he
Right.
was 10 or 11, I would see how he does next year because you only got 2 months of school left. What if he comes back next year and he makes so much growth and you're like, wow, I'm not too sure about this autism no more. That's why we don't need to rush. That's why we need to take our time. And that's why I don't like to see children evaluated after April 1st.
Copy. In regards to the 504 plan, because I think that would obviously be something that's a little bit more, sounds a little bit more on that path if we went to that route down the road. But how would you start that process?
With the 504, you need a disabling condition. That could be anything at all. And
the behavior part.
Yeah, you could get something from, let me give you an example. You could get a 504 if you simply said, my son was going through adjustment problems, anxiety, something real soft and mild. You could get a letter from a counselor or therapist outside of school, bring that into the school and say, we think our son needs accommodations because his anxiety, his worry, whatever he's dealing with is beginning to affect his focus. Don't go in there with no ADA. Don't go in there with anything that requires no medication. Stay away from the behavior disorders. But if you can, get a counselor, to put something on paper for your son, that would work. Of course, he could get evaluated by the school, but I don't trust that. I wouldn't trust them to just come back and say, well, he just got a little bit of a memory issue or he has a slow processing speed and he should get a 504 for that, because most schools are not going to do that. They're going to put him in special ed. So you could get a psychologist to test him outside of school and have them say it, or you can go to the pediatrician. You could talk to the pediatrician, say, hey, I'm trying to get my son some 504 accommodations. Is there some type of light condition you could say he's dealing with, that we could use to get the 504. It could be any kind of disabling condition. It doesn't have to be a hardcore diagnosis. It just needs to be a disabling condition. I've seen kids get 504 plans for everything from depression to epilepsy to diabetes. Like, it could literally be almost anything, as long as you can tie it to why he needs extra time to take his tests, why he might need a one-to-one